Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We did a gigantic piece on vellum last week, and I really like the end result. I really like this vellum technique in general, so I wanted to go big last week, just because I haven't done it in a while. But when I do scenes that are really large, with certain types of effects on them, I usually like to do a quick version soon after. Okay, so a really quick version of this is just to simply go smaller. This is a 7-inch by 14-inch piece. Again, this is a vellum piece that's been stamped on the front and back. And then on the white cardstock backing, there are other images stamped on that, and they have been merged together. And then some additional effects have been placed over the top of the vellum to finish it off. Okay, so to make a quicker version of that, naturally, we can just change the scale of something and go with a, standard 4¼ by 5½ piece. If you want to expedite that process, you can just go with some sort of background. It could be a photograph. We use photo prints a lot of times in scenic stamping. They call it photo stamping, but you can use them with a vellum overlay as well. This one's a more customized one by Deanna Tubb-Sedillo. She sells these pre-printed background papers that she creates, I think, with a lot of pastel work, but really fantastic scenic stamping foundations to utilize for quick applications of your stamps to make certain cards with. Okay, so this one right here, one of the things about pre-printed background papers or existing backgrounds is that they are already defined in terms of light and dark. So if I were to stamp something like an open design, such as the birch trunks, which I want to remain nice and light, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can stamp this onto the background, but then all these background colors are going to show right in the trunks, and we want those to remain light. You could stamp it down there and then white it out with pens or something like that, but you're going to lose a lot of the detail in the impression by just going over all those impressions directly with white ink. I would use something like an acrylic paint pen, probably, to make it the easiest. But, okay, if we want to just retain all of that detail in the impressions, well, things we can do is stamp it on vellum, merge the vellum with the background, and before we merge it, we paint out the imagery on the back of the vellum. That's what's really nice about using... it's not really translucent, it's more transparent. It's really a more translucent paper, but we can stamp on here and block it off, which we'll be doing on this piece. I'm going to stamp this out. Last week I used a hybrid ink for my impressions on the vellum, and then I heat set it. I'm going to use the Brilliance black ink here. It's a little bit more fast drying, and it works really good on the vellum too. Okay, so stamping on the front of the vellum. Right here. I do have a scene in mind for this too, but you can almost, with vellum and this kind of technique here, you can almost, it doesn't have to be a secondary thought, but it could be, because you can block out the vellum, so you can put whatever you want in the background. Just do anything you want before you merge the pieces. Hello, Cynthia, how are you? Happy Friday. Okay, so there we go with the vellum. You can see how it looks really good on the back side of it too. And let's see, let's go with another one of these. I'll go with the same stamp here. These weeks are going by so fast. The day goes by fast too. It's like I looked at the clock, I thought, oh my god, it's almost 4. All right, let's go about right here. Let's see here. Hopefully I didn't just block out that sun right there. Oh, good. See, that sun is kind of the star of the background paper, so I don't want that trunk to be right over the the sun right there. Okay, so I got a little peekaboo of it right there coming from behind the trunk like that. Okay, so remember, this ink's a little bit wet, but again, we'll block it out from the background. But this is how it would look if we stamp directly onto the background paper. You'd have all those colors showing right in there, which might not look too bad, but, there would be a really definitive line going right through those trunks. But then you just kind of white it out a little bit here and there if you were just stamping directly onto the paper. All right. But the vellum really allows for a variation to occur without altering, I don't know what you would call it, the design integrity or something like that. The imagery, you'd still retain all of the imagery details by just simply blocking it. Okay, and I need to be a little bit careful about this because this is a little bit wet right now. Let me get my bearings here a little bit too. Okay, now I'm going to put some grass connecting these two right here, okay? It's kind of interesting because when you're working on, see, here's another one of these pieces too. You can go with something like really dark like this too. That would be really cool too. I don't know if I thought about this one too, but I thought, well, this is kind of like, well, I don't know, it's sunset or something like that. It's almost like got the colors of twilight, but it has the sun there. But I thought, I don't know if I would want these trees like so white in this scenario right here. You can color them out too and add a lot of shadow work, but that would be a pretty cool one to do this with as well. Okay, so what I was getting at though, with this vellum, you can stamp these images on the front or back of the piece here and present that upright or whatever way you want to. Okay, let's go like that. Let me put a little bit of a texturing in here like so, okay? And here's the thing about that is I thought about doing this ground area down here, but I was thinking, do I block that out as well on the back with a white paint? We'll look into that when we get to it. But again, we'll get our bearings and take a look and see what that's going to look like right here. I'm going to put this dog right here looking out in the water, I think. I might change the composition as we go. Hello, Tracy, Linda, how are you? All right, let's heat set this. With Deanna's background papers, these our projects go so fast. But one of the things about having that background already done is it allows me to spend a lot of time with the other things that I really like doing, which are the details. Okay, remember, Brilliance Black, not a VersaFine Clair black pigment ink or something like that. I don't know how that would dry, if it would dry, on this vellum paper, because those the VersaFine Clair is a oil-based pigment ink as opposed to a water-based one. And the Brilliance is kind of designed to dry quickly as well. Okay, so stays on might work as well. Okay, so Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Oh my gosh, I didn't wash out my brush from last week. Let me see if I have another one here. Or, let me see. Let me see if I can get... The Dr. Martin's isn't like using acrylic white paint or something like that. You can just leave it in the brush and it'll just come out very easily with some water. I usually just put it under the sink. But let's see if it'll come out like this too. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, don't allow like acrylic paint on brushes to dry, otherwise it'll kind of fuse and you'll never be able to use them again. But the Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White is a water-based, opaque watercolor paint. Hello, Froggy Fresh! All right, here we go. All right, let's paint out. For some reason, I seem to... Let me see, make sure I'm painting the right side. Okay. I guess you can paint out directly on there, but it might smear because you're putting water-based media over water-based media. For some reason, I enjoy doing this type of painting like this. I guess because it's painting, but it's fairly, I don't know, whatever, painless. And this Dr. Martin's really spreads out too, so it's kind of, it's not like a fussy painting type. Oh, hey, Froggy Fresh, how did that go with that? That was acrylic that you used, right, for your piece where you got those spots, drip spots, right? That was splatter painting probably, and you were doing it directly over it. What is that? What happened? Froggy Fresh did this really cool composition, but a couple drops came out, which to me wasn't even, obtrusive. I thought it was kind of cool. It gave, I don't know, some variation. It's like, I don't know, it was almost like more like a decorative pattern to me. Like sometimes people do, like in Chinese paintings, they'll take this brush and they bang it on something so it splatters everything. Like in, I don't know, someone's doing like a cherry blossom branch or something like that. So that's what it just looked like to me. But Froggy Fresh made this, had a notation in the description about, hey, how do you repair this stuff? So it's like, oh, okay, well, that's what, they're probably talking about. So my suggestion was just to add, a few more of those splashes. And make it look more kind of like balanced, like a balanced splash. Okay, down here, we'll just add a quick little amount like this. I don't really care if some of that kind of shows through this down here though, because I'm gonna paint in some extra, or not paint in, but draw in a lot of extra tone down there with the colored pencils, just like last week. And I don't mind some of that blue showing through this vellum down there. It'll just look like shadow areas. All right, so you can see this right here. See where my area is really curling like this? So I guess that's where there's a lot of moisture in this lower section here. But again, it's all going to get merged and bonded with the background paper. Let me see if I can just kind of straighten this out a little bit while heat setting. I'll try to heat set it like this. Okay, remember this is on the back side of the vellum from the initial impressions there. Looks like I got a little bit of white paint there. It gets a little bit sloppy once in a while, but there you go with the perfectly opaque tree trunks like that. You can almost do like a winter scene too. That'd be really cool without all that extra foliage, but I'm going to add in some extra foliage here. I don't want it to look like winter, then there's this like really warm toned area in the background like that. Could, but anyway, I'm not putting this directly on there just in case there's a little bit of white paint on here that's still a touch wet. But that's basically the gist of it down there. So you can see some of those tones, like in the lower section. See, they're going to show through, but these areas down here, I'm planning on it being in shadow anyway, so I really don't need to do really too much there. and will just retain some of that darkness so I don't have to color it in later on. Okay, your blush blew up. House mouse cards. Ah, that's cool. House mouse cards, or house mouse stamps, man. Those were the bomb, as they call it, for a period of several years for sure. When was that? When was house mouse the most popular? And who has them now? I forgot who has them now. Was it? It wasn't Hero Arts, was it? I can't remember. Okay, here's the thing. All kinds of options here. I'm going to stamp some green leaves as an overhang up here, okay? I guess I can go fall tones too. Maybe I should, because these are, there's some reddish yellow right there. I'm looking at the scene that I did last week. I kind of want to do more green, like spring though. Okay, let's go with my first instinct here. Let's go with the greens. Okay, so I can stamp it on this surface. I can stamp it on the back of the vellum or the front of the vellum, or all three, really. Now, if I did all three, I would do it like different tones of green, okay? But I think if I stamp it on this vellum, it's just going to take longer to dry, so I'm going to go on the back. And then I think I'm going to do some additional impressions on the front of the vellum, probably with black to create a little bit of extra depth. Lighter tones in the background, green, darker tones in the foreground, black. Okay, and that should help to kind of frame off the piece a little bit too. Okay, so let me see. My pads are really getting whipped here in terms of stamping viability, meaning a lot of my pads, my super old pads, are like recessed. I use them to dab a little bit of my ink applicator into and, you know, color that way, but some of these are so bad that I can't get, you know, an even application of ink with them. I tend to use my supplies until, like, I can't use them anymore. It's like with everything. I tend to not get like new phones or something like that. Everything until it just can't be used anymore. So with like phones, before it breaks down, it's like the iOS can't be updated anymore. The phone's too old. And with these pads are probably 30 years old. I was advising someone that's kind of getting back into stamping after a few years off from doing it, on kind of a selection of inks. She has some inks, but she really wants to start like doing some scenic stamping. So I was advising her on some different colors to go along with the ones that she might have already had. We're talking about Memento and Memento Distress and Marvy inks, and there's still some Marvy inks out there on the market, but they're in re-inker form. And I was just saying, hey, she wants to do a lot of like ink layering and blending, that type of technique. So I just advised her, I said, hey, supplement some other lines of pads with some Marvies too, just so you can get a nice bright, like the brightest top end of intensity in your color blends. So anyways, what I'm getting at is we're looking for like blank pads to use with those re-inkers, because the Marvy blank pads that they used to sell, Marvy stopped selling them because they're just kind of discontinuing all their inks, but there was like these uninked, not inked pads where you just use whatever colors you want on there. Okay, so I think this is ready to go right here. One of the things that we're going to do here, you have a couple choices here, and I'm going to use my spray adhesive. I use the 3M Super 77. There's other types too. But this is the one that was recommended to be my major art panel manufacturer, ampersand art. And okay, so you can spray the back of this, but I think this is really going to bow and buckle and everything like that with all that moisture on there. So you spray the stiffer element. Okay, so this is like a thick cardstock here. So I'm going to spray this, and then we'll merge these two together. Make sure you don't merge it the wrong way upside down, like that. And let's get to that step right now. Okay, so I'll be back in about, I don't know, take me like a minute and a half or something like that. You always want to spray this type of thing outside, because I was doing it indoors in my garage briefly when it was getting really cold. And I had it in a box, but there's, I think when you spray it, there's like this fume of whatever, like adhesive dust that goes out. So I noticed around my box, it's a fairly deep box too, but it was getting sticky on my floor. So it's like, oh, I can't, you just always got to spray it outside. Okay. All right, give me a minute and I'll be right back. All right. Thank you for your patience. It's always strange spraying glue on the front of a piece, because I'm used to mounting these on something else, and you spray the back of it. So kind of going with the front is always like a weird feeling. Okay, try to get this lined up as best as you can, because once you get it laid down, it's pretty tacky. Okay, I'm off about, I don't know. I'm off a little bit. I'm lost like a 32nd of an inch up there. Okay, what you can do is get it laid out like that. Don't rub the top of that with your hand, but what I do is I put that in between something so it's like nice and flat. Yeah, I usually just go like this, but if you have a brayer, you can use this too. When you're on this size of card too, just a standard quarter-page card, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I usually don't get like ripples or air bubbles in between the bond. You can though, I guess. So kind of watch out for that. But it's usually then like the half-page pieces, or definitely larger like last week. When it started drying, I was getting a little ridge in a couple areas, so you just kind of, burnish it down like that, and it should come out. I've had larger bubbles though before in larger pieces where there's like, oh my God, I got a trap bubble in there. I can't work that air out to the side because it's just too much in the center, so I just take like an X-Acto blade and I just pop it, and I just squeeze the air out of there and then just burnish it down like that. I'm laughing because it sounds like I'm talking about like, what is that? It's like someone describing like popping pimples or something like that. Like this is a stamped art piece pimple, air bubble pimple. Okay, so there we have it like that. When you hold up like a piece of vellum next to the paper too, it might not look as kind of see-through as it does get when you merge the two together with that adhesive like that. Now, if you don't have a spray adhesive too, I've seen where there's like a video here on YouTube where someone has shown how to merge their vellum to paper. And what they did was they just used some crafting glue and they diluted it a little bit. And then they took a paintbrush and, spread it around on their cardstock and then merged the vellum like that. So that's another way to do it. Just remember to, wash out your brush, before it dries too, really well. Okay, so that's that. Let's see. I wanted to do. Oh, here we go. I wanted to do this little dog right here, kind of sitting there watching the sunset. I was going to put their kind of master out there, like on a little board, but I think I can just do the dog too, just like that. It's like a moment of contemplation for the dog. All right, it goes like that. Here's the thing too, if the dog's looking the wrong way or something like that, let's say, okay, so this one, it's like looking this way, right? But if the stamp is going the other way, and this is the compass, I don't want them looking out like that way, I could have stamped it on the back of the vellum, and it would have looked, you can do multi-directional stamping on, just by utilizing the properties of the vellum being see-through. A lot of my designs I do in kind of multi-directional or two different sizes. I didn't do the dog on this one. The dog came off of this set right here, so you can see it's like loaded. I didn't have another like space for like a second dog, looking another way. Another good one would be that one where there's that woman with her hand around the dog and they're looking outward. But I think if I used it here, I'd lose the some of the horizon line on here from Deanna's cool paper. Okay, holding down, allowing that ink to transfer pretty well here. Yours are so old that most are discontinued. Isn't that the unfortunate thing, There's a lot of discontinued products out there. And even some of the stuff, one of the things that I'm realizing, or I've realized, is that a lot of materials now are being, surfaces specifically, are being discontinued. So I don't know if those wood grain placemats are still out there or if they were just temporarily out of them, but I can't find the wood grain placemats anymore. And they're the holographic papers like this one, those real pillory looking ones. I can't find that anymore. Not that that one was ever like super popular, but there were a couple sellers of that on Amazon. And it was in different incarnations for a while. Like multicolored packs. And now that it's like that one's all gone. Okay, you got to be a little bit careful about this right here. See, I'm kind of heating this up, and it's starting to delaminate a little bit, the bond between vellum and background. It lifted up a little bit. I don't know if you can see it around the head of that dog. It's a little bit lighter because it's lifting, because I'm melting the adhesive. See, I want to keep it in contact enough to dry that dog, but I don't want it so much where I'm getting like a complete delamination. So I'm going to I heat set the dog to a certain amount. And I can see it's still a little bit moist. I don't know. You can see where there's a little bit of that ink right there from the dog. But I'll just dry it enough to where it's like, if I'm working around it, it's not going to kind of like, you know, smear or come off on my finger. Watercolors. Okay, you're best at watercolors. That's what I'm like the worst at. Tour the work area sometime. I'll have to do that sometime. I think I have it. I think it's like, I think there's a video called out there called like What's on My Desk. And I don't change media a lot. Like I said, I just keep using the same things, but things keep getting added into the mix periodically. You know, like the paint pens over the last few years. Maybe like a different pad, you know, like this pad got thrown into the mix. But it's usually, man, it's kind of the same stuff that I had like years ago on that video, you know, What's on My Desk. I should go over some of my basics though sometime. Like what surfaces do I tend to use a lot? What inks? As I say that, I'm kind of questioning whether I want to do the ink thing because you know, that can change like at any moment. You know, with the Marvies kind of not being around. Well, they haven't been around for a long time, but now I'm really going to have to think about you know, some different colors. Anyway, okay, let me see. I'm putting together kind of a little bit of a color scheme here. I want to go with some, you know, some greens in here. The tree trunks, I don't know. I'm always kind of changing my kind of notion on what color to add to the trunks in the shadow areas. Okay, maybe I'll go with some blue tones, but make it a little bit violet. I know you're saying, wait, what do you mean violet trunks? They're white. In the shadows, you want to add in, on white objects, you want to usually bring in some tones. So if this is the color, if we're doing like oil painting, taking an oil painting class, it's the colors of the sky usually that are reflecting on white surfaces that give it that color. It's naturally, if you had like a flashlight with a yellow film over the front of it, and you shined it on a white wall, it's going to be yellow. So like we would bring in these colors into the trunks in theory, okay? But sometimes you just want to go for some contrast or something like that. You don't want like perfect integration, so you might go with something, you know, this is warm tones right here. So like in the shadows right here, if I just want to create some contrast, we might go with cooler tones. And these colors are up here anyway too, so I guess it's kind of like creating a little bit of harmony, but you'd have like, if you did cool tone shadows on these trees against the warmth, which is the main area of it, you know, it would still kind of harmonize, but it would create a temperature contrast. All right. Okay, so anyway. Let's go with some greens here. One of the nice things about this too is that I wouldn't be able to really color really directly onto this white paint. Okay, it's just gonna, you know, colored pencils work really good with a little bit of tooth to the paper. So if I color directly on top of this, it's not gonna transfer. But the thing is, this paint is underneath the vellum here because it's painted on the back side. So this really applies really, you know, gracefully, effortlessly on that, you know, semi-textured vellum. Okay, I got a bubble right here. It's like clicking as I go across this, so that adhesive isn't quite so dry yet, so I can just kind of burnish this down. And I think I could feel it there briefly, but I don't hear that little click, so I think it's down there just fine. It's merged now. Yeah, so this is completely flat now. I think I didn't burnish around here too much because I have a little bit of that adhesive exposed here because I'm about like a I don't know, like 32nd or 16th of an inch off right here. So you can kind of see that adhesive, like sticky right there. All right, so just like a little, I don't know, sloppily applied base layer light green. Hello, Bonnie. Oh, yeah. That covered bridge one. What was all that other stuff around that one? I like that, and that the framing of that, the format of that covered bridge one. That was watercolors though. You didn't do it as a. Let me see. Was that one that had like that? I don't know. It was like it was framed off. Was that yours? The one that had like, like it looked like stitching or something on that formatting of that one was fascinating to me. Okay, going on with a green in here. I'm not coloring this whole thing green. We want some variation, so I'm going in. See, this is like this dog's going to be casting a shadow, so I'm kind of adding this, this shaded area like that. The sun is right here, so I'm going with a shadow in this direction right here. I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. This one right here, maybe the shadows would be more just, yeah, more of an angle this way actually. There's not a huge amount of space here, so you don't have to be like super careful about it. I wouldn't want this shadow going this way though, you see what I mean? Like if I went like extreme like this, because the sunlight's right here, so your shadow is going to be more like this direction. You go from like the base of that, so it's more like that. I'm off a little bit. It's more like down here, kind of. Kind of do it nice and light. Don't do a real hard line like that, especially if it's like in this grassy area. It's supposed to be kind of undulating a little bit. You can go with like real hard straight lines if it's like on something like flat, like bare earth, or something's on concrete or something like that. All right. That was these two. I'm going a little bit darker as I go. Nah, this one's a little bit lighter. It's not even going to show up. Darker right here. And see this one right here, the lighter one is like this. Let's say this lighter one's like this, okay? That's my shadow like that. Here's the tree is up here. So I go with the darker one, then you go in like the center like that, okay? Like that, so it's going from light to dark to light like that. So you get it transitioning in both ways like that usually, okay? So it's like right in here. Is this the, yeah, this is the darker one. Like this. Kind of like that. All right, so see that right there? And see this, how it's like the shadow's kind of right here. So you do it an internal thing like this. So you get this like softer transition right there to each side of that. My shadow's a little bit off, isn't it? My angle. We'll curve it out this way. So it's going like this and then like that. Yeah, see like that. Now it looks weird right now because I need to bring in, some more of this tone right here, but I kind of do I like doing my shadows, kind of getting my shadows established because they're almost like their own kind of like character of a scene when you add them in like that. See this? I need to anchor the dog down a little bit more, like that. See that right there? Doesn't that dog look like it's sitting in the scene a little bit more when you tone it in like that? Kind kind of going for a little bit darker perimeter, like that. Okay. Now, when I'm doing my grasses, my kind of my secret little weapon, it's not secret because I mentioned, I hope, I try to spread this around as much as possible. I don't like just greens and like green grasses. If you add in kind of like this tone of brown right here, it's like a medium warm brown. In the Marvy inks, it was always like this one. Okay, so something like that. If you add like that tone, into greens like this, it makes it kind of a more earthy looking green. So I'm going into the green, but I'm also going into some of these areas that don't have as much green applied. But see how greenish tinge that is? Now sometimes it's even greener because I use like a light green, like a real lime green. Like, let's do it right here. It's like a warmer green. I'm talking about in inks as well as like colored pencils. Could be alcohol inks too. But sometimes it's too kind of like bright of a green. So this in here, you don't have to use it everywhere, but here I'll use it some in the shadows like this. But I think it makes it look a little bit more earthy in here. And it's kind of a warm tone too, so it's like adding to the warmth a little bit, but it adds to the richness of the color scheme because it's kind of out of that hue, that specific hue, intensity, and value range. Okay, so you add that in there. Yeah, like tan colors, stuff like that, You can even add in, here's like a kind of a tan-ish, I don't know, this one's like so light, but it's like a peach color. You can kind of add that type of thing into the mix in there. I don't know if you can see that. Actually, the alcohol looks really good. Maybe I'll add some more of that, but yeah. Browns can be your, like a really good partner in green themed areas, toned areas, okay? Color schemed areas, like that. See that right there? So I'm hitting it in the shadows a lot there too. It kind of looks, it doesn't look like brown or anything like that. It looks kind of just more like olive or something. All right, and let's try the tree trunks here. Light is coming from here. So the far side of the trunks on each side will get that shading. I'm going to do this right here too. Sometimes I do it all the way up and down, but if I don't use this for a while, it's like, oh, wait, I forgot. Kind of just have it a little bit more varied, okay? So I went here with this tone, and then I went up here. I just skipped a spot. It doesn't matter which area you skip, just as long as it's kind of a little bit more varied. Like that. And then we'll flip it around. This side of the trunk here, I'm flipping it around because I just can't see, what I'm doing. Well, I don't know. I guess I can. But I don't like putting my hand right into all that ink there, so. And see, you can just go right down in the grass, too, especially with blues and greens relate. So you bring some of this blue in here, too, like that. All right, so you see this little bit of shading on each side of your tree trunks like that. Here's a little bit of a lighter blue. Let's try some of that. Kind of staying more on the right side. This one gets left side treatment a little bit. And here's a little bit of the lavender tone. So you're bringing some of those lavender tones from up here into the trunk. I hadn't really thought about it before, but I guess I could go like a little bit of warmth on the side of those trunks too. And like you go cool side, like shadow area, cool tones, and a little bit of warmth on the warm sides. I guess it would make sense. Let me try that. I don't want to go too much. I think it'll look kind of like weird. I'll just add a little bit. I'm going to be putting in some white over the top of this too, so. I want to go walk in a birch forest. Okay, so there that is like that. Let's take our black now, or maybe brown. Let's try the brown first. Okay, here we go. You die cut the bridge after you painted it, and then die cut the next larger size and mat it on pop dots. Oh, okay. Did the die cut it? The watercolor paper is very thick. I love that watercolor textured look of those watercolor papers. That's something I just haven't done. I haven't worked with a lot of like really textured papers in stamping in general. I think a long time ago I might have used some vellum once in a while. I don't even know if I used like vellum paper for scenes, but I think it was the envelopes that I was stamping on a gazillion years ago. A gazillion years ago when we used to mail things. It was more of that that mail art was still, going strong. I don't know, maybe through the 90s or something like that. You didn't see as much of that mail art. You can kind of see it coming back a little bit some ways, but okay, so that black is now on the side of those trees. So see these trees. So instead of just going with black, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's like these different colors within the piece. See that like little bit of violet against that yellow right there? You know what I mean? It's just like, it's fairly subtle, but I think it adds to the overall kind of whatever ambiance. All right, so let's see here. Let's go in with our paint pens. Do I do the paint pens first? Do I do the overhanging branches first? I'm thinking it's going to be harder to stamp on that, not on the vellum, but on top of acrylic paint pen dots. So I think I'm going to do my foreground now, and then I'll add in my paint later. I mean, you can do it both ways, but I think this is going to be the easiest thing to do here. Okay. All right, so take a look at it now. You can see what those leaves look like as is, but then I'm stamping this, but I'm stamping it higher up here, okay? To kind of create a little bit of a stronger perimeter framing with imagery. Okay, wait, say, picks up a lot more pigment than smoother. The dye embossed it. Oh, the embossing, yeah, like dry embossing, yeah, not heat embossing, but dry embossing, right? Punching it out from the back. Yeah, sometimes I look at your pieces, Rocky Fish, and I think the technique eludes me. It's like it's too advanced for me. I love the techniques though, and the entire look. Stamp and hold for a little bit. Allow that ink to transfer again. If it's like the water-based brilliance, okay. All right, but see how it creates that extra layer of depth in the piece. Probably it's a even more depth because the background leaves. You know, when I'm doing this on like it's just a white piece of cardstock, it's on the same whatever plane or layer, but this one's like, you know, it's almost like two surfaces back because we could have done it on the back of the vellum, but it's on the it's on Deanna's paper there, so you know it creates a decent amount of depth up there. That's what's you know one of the really fun things about the vellum is just those. It's a fairly shallow layer of depth. I mean, it doesn't represent something that's, 20 miles away or something like that. It just represents something that's, whatever, a foot or two or something like that away from the other branches in here. But there's still a pretty decent amount of visual depth in there. Okay, let's do the same thing down here. Let's put in some foreground. That up there is kind of like a little bit wet, so be careful about that. Okay, we have that. When I look at that, I'm thinking, I really don't need to have to do like other things on there, which is always a good thing. For me, I enjoy adding the paint pen work in here, but I think it looks fairly decent just as is. Objects are still a little bit shiny, I think, are parts of them, but I just want to get it locked down just enough. Let me check something though. I wasn't quite sure if there was some delamination taking place again. It's pretty dry, I guess. I didn't get any print on there, so I think I'm okay to kind of burnish right here. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't some kind of like ripple in there between the vellum and the background. It looks pretty good though. Okay, I got a little bit of ink off of that down there, but it looks like it's largely dried. A little bit more on that way, but not too bad. So it's fairly dry like that. Okay, really love that background paper of Deanna's right here. But again, it's a fun way to work, Again, here, I'll show you. She did send me 2 of these ones, so we can do a little compare contrast right here. But, we can see what the vellum's doing in terms of decreasing the intensity of here. Because, again, you put that vellum over the top of it, so it's translucent. It's not transparent. So you get that. But it's a way to put those lighter types of objects over the top of, things that are already established on here and darker that would potentially show through, your objects like that. So anyway, okay. Acrylic paint pens. We'll have some green down here. I'm going to put in some like a little sparkly green down here, like reflective lighting. They call it specular light. And then I have my white paint right here that I'll put on the tray. This one might be too thick for this one. Maybe I'll use my 0.7 millimeter. Check out Froggy Fresh's work on the Facebook group if anyone joins. Linda's as well. anyone else in here. Yeah, you can check out everyone's work. It's really fantastic. There's always like new, everyone has like their own technique too, and style. I wouldn't say that I know immediately Froggy Fresh's pieces though, because they work in so many different types of media too, you know. But yeah, all kinds of different papers and everything like that used, and in really fantastic ways. Okay, so let's try the paint pen here. I'll go with the white here. As mentioned last week, I like to kind of de-emphasize the side of the birch trees that are facing the light. See that kind of light on this side right here? So it gets rid of that line right there a little bit. That needs to get blended in a little bit more, but I'm just kind of getting rid of it. That line right now here. A little touch. If you're going over other types of media too, with these thin pens like is occurring right now from a technique standpoint. See, I'm going over colored pencil. These pens are normally really good. They don't really clog on me, but I might be like scooping up some of that wax colored pencil application on there, and it's going up in that small tip right there. So you just kind of get it flowing a little bit, get it, do a little scribbling like that. Just keep that in mind though. All right, so see the left side of these trees to the right of this light source, and this one right here is right side illuminated to the left of the lighting right there. I'm probably putting in a little bit. That's not so bright of a, like a sun right there. So usually the reflections are, you know, as dark or whatever, as bright light as your source there. Maybe I should use more of this tan right here. All right. This is a brand new pen right here. Here, I have the same one right here, I think. Is that same color? I don't know, I'll use this one right here. When you get your new pens, you know, you just kind of press it down and wait for that paint to come down. Okay, here we go. A little bit more of a, like a warm tone right here, so I'll put some little highlights in this grassy area. I usually add it in the lighter areas. And then if I add it in the darker areas, it's kind of more of like a little isolated, sparse application like that. But see that right there? That really brings this area to life like that. It's this kind of response, it's whatever, call and response type of thing, almost like between your source of light and your reflective light down there. So it's like it brings it to life and it makes it kind of shimmer like that. Let's see, let's put some on, maybe on our trees too, like this. I guess we can go with a little bit of a warmer edge highlighting, kind of in conjunction with the white there. I don't think I've done that before. Like on these trees. Adding in a little bit of warm lighting, but it's also texturing. And here. Okay, like that. There needs to be like a little quote up here, but I don't have a quote that's going to fit in this really narrow spot. You can do it like a word or something like that, or I could put like something over the top of that. I don't know if I want to though. There's like this contemplative moment. I think these birds up here would be cool though, like this. Can't have it too close. Yeah, maybe like this. It's like animals are quote, oftentimes. Okay, let me do this one later, because I'd have to heat set. I don't want to have to heat set right now. Oh, okay, so we have these green leaves in here. And I wonder if that one's going to be too light. Let's go with this right here. See this tone right here? It's almost the same color as that. And I'm shaking this up. I've never used this color, I don't think. Like even that little thing in there, that little, whatever, mixing, plastic ball, it was like completely stuck, I think. I'm usually doing highlights and not like darker tones with my paint pens. So there's a lot of paint pens that I have that I almost never use. Hello, military mom. Happy Friday to you. All right, here we go. Maybe I have used it before sometime. Okay, I'm going to add in some tone onto some of these trees. It's kind of more texture, but I'm adding it onto that. It doesn't really show visually too much, but this is an acrylic paint, so it's giving those leaves a little bit more kind of volume and texture because the acrylic paint is kind of shiny and it'll be raised a little bit, okay? So I've put a few dots on, I don't know if I can show you this here, but if it'll show up. Yeah, see, okay, so see, it's kind of like shiny in a couple little areas. So it's giving it a little bit more texturing, it's like one of those little tiny detail things. I was just talking with Linda about that on our post where she did like little tiny minute, well, I don't know about minute, but there were small details that really kind of invite you in to the different areas on larger pieces, especially. That reward the viewer for doing so, for inspection. But if you add these little kind of details around in here, it's if someone kind of was to enjoy your piece, with multiple viewings and closer viewings and stuff like that, there's something for them to kind of keep discovering about the piece and to enjoy, So anyways, okay, so I added in some lighter tones like that. Back up in that area, and it gives a little bit of continuity between top and bottom in terms of textures. Those are a little bit light right now, but they're going to dry and they're going to look darker though, because, I don't know, paint pens, they just dry darker than how they look when they're freshly applied. And let's see. I'm never quite sure about adding in some extra texturing, especially with white, but it looked pretty good on, I don't know, I'm trying to think of what piece I used this on. Because there isn't really, that sun right there isn't really white, okay? So, but I think this looks pretty good on here anyway, some extra white mist, texturing, etc. I always talk about this all the time, but if someone's like watching this video for the first time or something like that, this is a 100% cotton ball, and I'm putting it into my white pigmenting pad. It's kind of dry, okay, which I keep this pad at. but it'll get real, frayed in here like this. Okay, you don't want to apply that in here. So what you do is you just kind of squash it down and flatten it out a little bit like that. And you have a nice flat surface to work with. But it's also, the biggest thing is it's not so loaded with a bunch of like super wet pigment ink. Okay, mine's kind of dry. I keep my one white pigment ink pad of mine kind of medium dry usually when I first ink it up. Every time I re-ink it, it's kind of more on the medium dry side. And I use that until it's like really dry. A lot of our pads are like super juicy, so what you do is you just kind of tap it in lightly and then squish it down and then dab it off and then go onto your scene, okay? If you don't use white pigment ink very often. And you live in a place other than like Arizona where your inks are going to dry really fast. Just sitting around. Okay. So let's see here. So I'm kind of adding a little bit of haze right around in here. My pad is really dry now. I'm just like going in directly. And I'm just lightly dabbing it. See, that you want that kind of that transition to happen really slowly so that you have a lot of control over it. But I'm putting in this little mist right around in there. You see the diffusion that's taking place right there? Even like that small amount, it's kind of like a nice little textural difference. See, I'm kind of putting it on the dog there too. So they're kind of like in the light now. It's like the light is kind of enveloping them because you get this illumination of the moisture in the air, you know, or whatever that this is representing that's in the air. So it makes it a little bit more of a, you're adding in this kinesthetic element into the scene like this. Visual kinesthetics. Okay, like that. I won't go too much. And I'm not adding it like everywhere because I want a little contrast. So I'm adding it up here. There's none right here, and there's some down here. None right here, some up here, like that. And if you add too much, you just kind of take your dry side of your cotton ball and just kind of dab it off, wipe it off. Okay, here's one thing too. I forgot about that I really liked last week as I'm adding that in. I'm done with the mist. But on all these like bare branches like this, what I did was I added in a lot of little leaves onto those branches. And this one, it's, you know, like fall tones, so I did them in yellow and green. So let's put a few little, this is supposed to be more kind of a, I don't know, whatever, spring, summerish right here. So I'm going to put the leaves on those branches. I'll do them in different colors too. I'm just doing the darker ones first as like a base layer. Like that. Froggy Fresh, there's your dog right there, one of them. We need more of like a Saint Bernardi looking dog. I'll just put like this little, one of those little rescue dogs with a, we'll put like a barrel like under on his collar, you know. Okay, a little bit of lighter green here. Maybe more of like a Christmas green would look better. I have that too. Yeah. Let's see. All right, that looks, yeah. It's kind of, it's almost changed the spirit of that a little bit with those leaves on there. Those lighter tones like that. If Froggy Fresh, this could be like a, you can make a card like this for your dog for his birthday. This is one that I don't use too much either. Sorry for the racket. I got to get that little thing engaged in there. How often do you clean that pad? This pad right here, Bonnie? When it starts to get too fuzzy, I just take my, in this case, National Park Pass, and I just scrape it off like this, and I get those fuzz balls off. So, I don't know, it's probably once a quarter, maybe. If that, I think. Well, yeah, but it's like once every 4 months. It's when I re-ink the pad. If it's too gummed up, then I'll do it. So I've shown people this before when I do this, but see, I have 2 pads. This one's for my cotton ball, you know, kind of applications. And this one's for if I want to stamp like impressions with. Because if I try to stamp impressions on this one, I'm going to dab my usually quote stamps, word stamps in this one. And if I go to stamp it, it's got like all these fuzzies on it. So, all right, let's see. I'm not, I've never been, unless I'm doing like some stamp that I'm changing colors with a lot, like a cloud cumulus or something like that, one of my clouds. I don't clean them off too often, but the cloud stamp, I'm using it in all kinds of different colors. Like I'm stamping a sunset scene, I'm stamping it in pink or orange or something like that. I don't want to have a bunch of the blue that I just used on it, you know, whatever, a week ago or something like that, because it'll pollute that. So I tend to clean that stamp off a little bit more often. So that's about the stamp pad, I know, but I'm talking about just like cleaning in general. I just don't do it too much for a lot of different things. Oh yeah, I forgot about the, it's right here. You know, this one's almost too large here. I have another real small version of that flop. And it's not this one either. That was the same size. All right. Sorry, folks. Give me a second here. I gotta find what set that was on. Does anyone know what set that tiny little flock was on? I think it was the moon stamp. Yeah. No, it wasn't the moon one. I'm trying to think of nature set something. If I can't find it, I'll just we'll just conclude this. I can't remember what set I had that really tiny gulls on. I'm looking through my online catalog here. Apparently, I haven't used that a whole lot. I don't know. Sometimes I just, at the last minute, I kind of fill in with a tiny little stamp. Okay, I can't find it. There's this really small little gull stamp that I'll use in that section, but I'll go and try to find it. I got a little piece of little nick. Do you guys see that right there? That's kind of bothering me. That's a little bit of that white paint, I think, that I got into that area there. Yeah, I think it's on the back of the vellum. So there we go. You just kind of like obscure it. There, I'm like one of those painting, whatever, those people that do, those ones that do like restorations. All right. Actually, that's like a little. So I have to get into the spirit of the artist, which isn't me, it's Deanna, and get into that, create a similar mark right in there. See, it was like there was a little bit of that purple, like that's right in there. So anyway, yeah. So with the birds, we'll be done here. I don't know where it is. Which one it was there. The gold stamp is with your lighthouse set. It is. It's with the lighthouse set, but this is the same size gulls here. Right here. I put it on there. But there's a smaller version of it, I thought, somewhere. I have so many different sets now, I can't even remember. But yeah, we'll get this formatted off, and I don't know. It makes for a pretty quick card. I mean, this is an hour 15 into it right here, okay? I spent a lot of time on those little tiny details because that's the types of things that I really have a lot of fun with. I don't have to like angle that off like that. But I mean, you could do, even when I just merged this piece onto Deanna's background paper, I thought, hey, that looks pretty good just as is. But I really like adding in these little dots of paint and everything like that, and doing that little highlighting on the trees, and doing the standard size card isn't kind of devoting whatever a half an hour to illuminating sides of trunks and stuff like that. So here we go, the extreme version like this. Not so quick of a card. And, the same technique here, but just using it kind of, minimally almost, like something like that. So it's a good way to do it, like, again, with things that are showing through. And this one happens to be on Deanna's card, but it's a great, the vellum technique is really great. Like on something like this, if we were going to put something over the top of this, I can't have these birch trees going through here, without having this blue going right through them. I stamped the birch trees right over the top of it. So this is a really good way to utilize kind of existing backgrounds like that. You can probably stamp like the birch trees directly on this one because there's not so much contrast, but things like this. You can utilize any type of existing background with the use of, that kind of that whiting out of the, that'll be really fun to use. Yeah, utilizing that translucent nature of the vellum and the ability, the black and white application of media ability on those. So you get, if I did those trees and if it was on the back of this vellum, I don't think you'd really be able to tell. But it does knock down the intensity of certain colors underneath the vellum, of course, because it's translucent. So yeah, lose a little bit of the intensity, but yeah, it's just another way to, it really expands on the, whatever the potential usage of Deanna's papers, so you can use them in all kinds of ways. I don't know. Stuff's still kind of popping into mind too. Every time I use them, I have to use them for a little bit. If I use them like a few days in a row, it's like, oh, I usually, I don't know, some other way it comes up, pops into mind as far as usage goes. So that's what's the fun thing about things like this too. It's not just starting off with a white piece of paper or a little bit more of a slightly blank canvas, so to speak. You kind of start thinking about these things in here. And it's like, okay, if I go with this here, whatever, like an island in the distance or something like that. And it's like, that's when I was thinking of things like overlays, reflection things, or sometimes there were certain pieces of hers where I just kind of folded it in half, and that was the card. Here was sky, and this was land down here, and I just used it like that to so it unlocks, I don't know, additional creativity at times, or a lot of times. That's what it's doing for me, so I don't know. It's like exercising a different part of the brain or something like that. Yeah, sorry about that. I zoomed in too far here. So let's see. Thing. You print those backgrounds off. Wait, Froggy Fresh, are you talking about the photographs there? Yeah, I had those printed off. if you're asking me that. I sent out, okay, to have those cloud prints done, but the one thing about that, though, they're using some kind of paper these days that you can't easily stamp on with dye-based inks, okay? So if you have a inkjet printer at home, that would be better to use for photo stamping directly onto the photos, okay? Because that photo paper, that home inkjet printer paper, that it really accepts the inks really nicely. And that's what I used to get from sending out to places like Costco and having them printed out. But they're printing out on some other type of system these days that's like, it's like waterproof ink or something like that. So I have to stamp stays on these recent prints, okay? The sent out for prints I'm talking about. So I did it at CVS too. And my CVS, I thought it would be different than the Shutterfly ones, but I couldn't stamp on the CVS ones, and they're printing it out right in the store. And those ones were unstampable with dye-based inks. So the water-based media should work on your home inkjet printer prints. So that's what I would do. I've been looking for a printer to get. I don't know if anyone has like a recommendation for a good inkjet printer, let me know. There's all kinds of ones out there. I don't want to get one of those that requires like a subscription or something like that. Or there's all kinds of things that some of these printer manufacturers have done. Like if it has a cartridge with all four colors in it, like if black runs out or blue runs out in it, you can't use the black anymore in it. I don't want something like that either. So I want a, like a good printer. Oh, the photopolymer stamps. Yeah, those are on the Sweet Poppy website, Sweet Poppy Stencils website, and you can look up stamps on their pull down menu, and I think it's by like Stampscapes, and they both sell the rubber and a certain range of the polymer ones on their site. Don't use those polymers with stays on though, right? It makes you cry every time you use it. Yeah, Sweet Poppy Stencils. They're in the UK though. My wife has an Eco Tank one, and that one, her Epson's like clogging once in a while. I have printed out though, like a background before because I needed a 5x7 or something like that. And anytime you move away from the 3.5x5 or the 4x6 standard sizes of enlargements, it really goes up in price, like exponentially, just because it's, I don't know, they don't have it just like on automatic, and they probably have to load the paper in or something like that for that specific size. So I've printed out on that Eco Tank before. It's been a while since I've done that though, and I don't remember how I used it or if I stamped directly on it. So I don't know. Are the Inco Tanks the same thing as like an inkjet printer in terms of the type of ink used? I was never clear on that one. Do you have the photopolymer? I don't sell it on my website, Froggy Fresh. I don't wholesale purchase those myself, so you'd have to buy them directly from them. Yeah. And again, I looked at it recently because I'm not even sure which stamps they have, but the stamps they are producing are the ones that are going to be a little bit more conducive for usage with their stencils. So they might be of different sizes as well, which is why I kind of made them that offer. I said, there's a lot of my stamps that are, they're made for 4x6 cards or above. Something, people do bookmarks and stuff like that on with my stamps too. But there are certain types of stamps where if they were smaller, they can fit within the window of their stencils. So I gave them free reign to do whatever sizes they want on a lot of the different images, like, and it would typically be reductions of the ones that I do. I have a lot of my designs in two different sizes anyways, but they have picked out some sizes that are really, again, really conducive for fitting within that window interior spaces of those stencils. Not all the stencils are like that. They're not all window stencils, but for the most part, I think that's the way they've demonstrated a lot of the Stampscape stamps before, like windows and like ornaments and, Christmas ornaments or something like that. Not whole like big scenes within, a given space. It's usually like 2 or 3 isolated images or something like that in their pieces. It's really cool. It's a real graphic type of usage of the imagery. And when they're kind of isolated like that, I really like it because it really showcases and highlights kind of the silhouette and forms and just all of the little nuances just inherent in the designs, because they don't like fill it all in like I do afterwards with all kinds of extra layering and stuff like that. So it's like stamp, I don't know, design purity. The rubber ones are the best, but they're rigid. Rigidity means hard to use. Oh, hard to use. Hard to use smooth paper? You mean, I can produce better image on heavily textured paper. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Because it molds into the thing? Does the polymer bend easier? Huh. That's interesting to me. I thought the polymer might be stiffer than rubber, but you might go with like Tracy says, I prefer red rubber and have not had. I would Froggy Fresh. Have you used like a softer? Froggy Fresh? Are you using a positioner like a Misty or something like that, or are you just using like acrylic blocks or some kind of like that type of usage? Because I'm saying, if you're kind of if it's easier to get in the grooves, maybe this won't help at all, depending on certain types of like watercolor paper, but maybe more cushioning underneath the surface. I don't know, but you wouldn't want it too squishy or anything like that. Something relatively firm, but with a little bit more give, maybe. And maybe that would help contour. The ideal thing for like really textured things, though, it's the art foamies right here. I mean, these things get like into everything, into every little groove, but on the other side of the art foamy is they just don't, by nature, they don't retain as much detail as you would get with rubber. So that's the only trade-off. But in terms of impression capabilities, I don't know. I haven't found anything better than like foam stamps like this, and it has a decent amount of detail. But yeah, nothing like super detailed. Like you wouldn't have like something with a huge amount of like tightly like old engravings or something like that. Like a lot of companies have like that type of thing. Those ones wouldn't be best for like those types of images. I have a lot of detail in some of mine, but and it retains it, including the birch trees. But yeah, those ones are really great for that. I don't know if you have any of those art foamies, but it's that again. I don't sell those either. Those are on the art foamies site. Blocks and a Misty. Okay, you use both then. I don't know. Yeah, try that. Try a little bit more like cushioning or something like that on the under the surface, maybe like something like a foam mat or something like that. I was thinking nothing too squishy, because then that might affect the integrity of the image. But yeah. like, I don't know, we're talking about like a watercolor paper. Watercolor is like the most extreme paper, unless it's like a hot press watercolor paper or something like that. But those ones with a lot of grooves in it. Yeah, the art foamies would be the way to go. So the art foamies and like a thicker type of ink too, So I like the hybrid ink and the brilliance, if I needed to get into grooves or something like that. And I think it was the Vellum last week. I was stamping because I hadn't stamped on some surface in a while, and I stamped out something. Maybe it was on top of the. Okay, I can't remember what it was, but it reminded me. Oh, I need to go with a thicker ink. So if you go with a thicker ink, it can get potentially into those grooves a little bit more. So this one's going to be the thicker one, of course, and of course your versifying Claire would be the other one, just working on matte types of papers like watercolors, but something like that, or this one right here is pretty good because it's a combination of both the oil-based pigment, the thickness of the oil-based pigment, and opacity in combination with your water-based dyes. I don't know how they mix them together. So you get some of the penetration of the thinner dye and the opacity and thickness of the oil-based pigment in the hybrid one. I don't know. I don't know if that'll, work or not, but in theory, I think it would be pretty good for textured papers, your watercolor papers, whatever, linen, that type of thing. Yeah, yes. I'm curious, yeah, Tracy, if the foam mat, might help with the more textured, toothy papers like that. Photopolymer for word stems. That's a great combination there, yeah, because you really see the placement of it, huh, Cynthia? Yeah, that's a really great point there. Archival. Now that surprises me with the archival for the textured papers, huh? Because I thought the archival was a real thin ink, but that can get into those grooves. Then you're saying with the polymer stamps, though, huh? Yeah, I didn't know that about the polymer stamps. They were that soft where they can kind of like squeeze in easier than the rubber. So that's news to me. I wonder if that, yeah, huh. I was going to say, I guess it would depend on the stamp too. Like my stamps, a lot of times they're real dense with detail, even if it's just a few little dots or something like that, as opposed to like more of an outline style of design. When you get linear types of designs, it's not supported on each side of that line, so it might be easier to contour that thinner type of form into more textured types of papers. That's why a lot of my designs, if it's real tonal or if there's a lot of solid areas, they're not good for like super textured papers a lot of times because you're missing a lot of the information just because it won't contour into them like an outline design. And also, if you get a broken line, like on a tree like this, like the birch trees are different. They're real airy as far as my designs go. But if you're missing like a few little areas on this tree, just our minds kind of connect all the areas up because it's a linear type of thing. Where if it's more of a tonal thing, it's missing more of that, whatever the form, So it looks real like blotchy instead of just like a broken line type of thing. I don't know. It's interesting though. Okay, thicker ink tends to stay on tops of the grooves that thinner inks fill in. That surprises me. Yeah. Hmm. But it would still need to make contact though, right? Huh. Frankie Fresh, we need like some if you're kind of experimenting around with that, Froggy Fresh, Can you post that in the Stampscapes group at some point in time? Just down the line, you know, if you're doing something and it's like, hey, that didn't stamp out, and you experiment around, you know, with something, let us know that. Let us know what, you know, what you use there or something like this. Or here was an example of this one, you know, that didn't stamp out as well with that, whatever type of paper it is, because that's the type of stuff that, you know, would be really good to put out there just, you know, for whoever's doing that type of technique in the future. And someone can always refer back to that too. That's why I always do these different types of videos too. Someone was asking about like using markers, and they were they have, I think they have some old Marvy markers, and they said yeah, but some were dry. But then I have the video out there of how to refill them. But on something like that, it would be good. We've covered other things like inks on different types of papers, and put that Linda put the file up with things like that. But I don't think we've talked about like ink density before with textured papers at all, in terms of ones that would work the best for that. So when you post that, that'll be the first. Don't work on any project, you know, to do that. Just, you know, if you're just kind of like, you know, experimenting around, and, you know, just in the course of your, you know, pieces that you're doing or something like that, you know, yeah, post the, you know, the whatever, the test prints or something like that. That would be great. I'm saying this because I want to see it too. I want to learn about all this as well. All right, folks. A relatively quick scene, vellum scene. This vellum birch scene. Thanks to Deanna Tubb-Sedillo. Cool background papers. Hope to see you all in the next live stream. Fun stuff. We know the little quote here. Or maybe on the other side of it, on the inside of the card, it'll be like, it's a dog's life or something like that, you know. And then Froggy Fresh can replicate this one. That's going to be her birthday, on her dog's one of the dog's birthday. She's going to give the card to the dog. And it'll have like a jerky treat on the inside. All right, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of evening and weekend. Thanks for joining in.